Thank you, Nancy. Good evening, everybody. Co-host this week, psychotherapist Robbie Ludwig, author of Till Death Do Us Part. Coming up, we have a man who once dated Jodi Arias, and we have Travis Alexander's friend Chris Hughes. He will join us. Chris will tell us how the Alexander family is holding up as this death phase, penalty phase, drags on and on. Now, as Nancy said, the jury has left for the night. They told the judge earlier that they cannot reach unanimous agreement on life versus death. The judge told them to keep at it, so they will be back at it again tomorrow. And as we just heard Nancy's guest say, 7 hours, not a long time, Robbie, for them to be deliberating on something as serious as a death penalty decision. All the while,
yes, I could.
Go ahead.
I could see that. I mean, this is it just shows that the jury is taking this job very, very seriously, as they should and they need to.
That's right. As we heard from Juror 8 last night or the night before, he was telling us, yes, he took this very seriously, and he felt as though his fellow jurors did as well. Some of them felt they were representing the Travis Alexander family and their wishes, which has been clear that they want death penalty, versus those that seemed to have difficulty coming up even with a first-degree murder verdict. There was some crying. We reported, cried at the having to put pen to paper for that. I think those are the ones having the trouble with the death penalty phase. Jodi has granted now a number of interviews last night. Look at this from ABC15.com. Watch.
That's me attempting to dress myself. This is my niece when she was a bit younger, playing the piano, while attempting to play the piano.
Are you enjoying the attention, for the record?
No. Not this kind of attention.
What were the last words Travis said to you?
I don't remember it was just idle chit-chat. The pictures, you know, no, that one's good, we'll keep that one, we'll delete that one, okay. You know, just common stuff.
Is that what all the recording was about? Were you documenting at that point?
That's just something we did. I've never done that with any guy before, and he wanted to.
Were you just so frustrated with him and so angry with him?
No, I don't feel like I was ever angry with Travis.
You were never a scorned, bitter woman, jealous by these other women?
I had no knowledge of it. I assumed there were other women, because that was his modus operandi.
You have nightmares?
I've been told that I scream and cry in my sleep, and several times I've woken myself up screaming.
Why didn't they do an insanity plea?
I don't know.
You can go to ABC.com, ABC15.com to see more of the interview with Jodi Arias. HLN correspondent Beth Caritas has been covering the trial. Beth, help me out with this. The way we were thinking about this today is there have been several trials presented to this jury. The verdict, the mitigating circumstance, guilty versus not. Several trials, and now there might be a new jury for the trial, right?
Yes, indeed. However, I think it's a little premature. In fact, it was hard to believe that this jury was actually saying they were deadlocked after only 2 hours of deliberation. So one has to wonder if they were really just asking for some guidance. What do we do if? I don't know. It's not the way the judge read the note, but it's hard to believe they were actually deadlocked. So I'm still predicting a verdict in this case. But if they can't reach a unanimous decision on life or death, then there would be a mistrial on this phase only, and a new trial would be impaneled. A new jury would be impaneled. And that jury would have to accept the guilty verdict, accept the proven aggravating factor of especially cruel, and only decide life or death. So they would hear some evidence, a couple weeks worth of evidence maybe, and then they'll make the decision only whether or not Jodi Arias should live or die. And if the state gets a hung jury again, then it's life. They get 2 shots at giving her death.
Interesting. Thank you, Beth Caritas. Joining us now, attorney and SiriusXM radio host Jenny Hutt, attorney Mark Eiglarz from SpeakToMark.com, and attorney Ariva Martin. Now, Jodi carefully orchestrated several media interviews yesterday. Anyone looking at this trial might start thinking this whole thing has become a circus, and my question to my attorney panels is, has it? Ariva? Doesn't hear us. Mark, what say you?
A circus, I would say that that's a fair metaphor to describe what's going on. Inside the courtroom, one would argue that the judge is just bending over backwards to protect her rights. What concerns me the most is here is a gal who now has affected jurors with the stuff that's flowing from her lips. In other words, there are some, I believe, who've bought on to this Mother Teresa of murderers routine that she tried to sell them. And yet there's others like myself who still believe, I believe, that she's as phony as Milli Vanilli singing.
But listen, I'm beginning to think, Robbie,
old school?
Robbie, I'm gonna, old school, too soon, Mark. Robbie, I'm beginning to think that this borderline process. Now, one of the things people got to understand about borderlines is when they start spinning, they spin out of control all over the place. Robbie, when we deal with borderlines, we contain, right? If the judge, Mark just really triggered something in my mind. If the judge is bending over backwards to make sure there isn't a mistrial by allowing sort of anything to go on, borderlines will go berserk. They'll spin out of control with that kind of thing. Robbie, you understand what I'm talking about?
Well, right. And Jodi, it does feel like the Jodi Arias show. I mean, it really does. And I think the fact that she was even allowed to give interviews was, I don't understand how any judge would allow that.
Forget the judge. The sheriff allowed it.
Just whoever allowed it. I don't know who allowed it, but it was very disturbing to see Jodi in action. It really was. Because she was so disconnected, and she seemed to be having a good time. So the question is, where is the justice here? Where is the justice for Travis's family? Because Jodi seems to be having a good time saying whatever she's saying and getting attention for it.
Yeah, and Jenny, I know you want to ring in here, but I want to read a tweet from the sheriff. Hang on, this is from Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Blah, blah, blah. You're mad about the interviews. Please understand we can't step on her First Amendment rights. We allowed them, and now no more. Jenny.
Okay, there's, God, so many things that I want to say. Number one, don't be such a hater. By the way, I'm taking her words. Did you see that interview? That was directly from Jodi's interview. Listen, part of the problem I think that the jury's having is that when we saw Jodi speak in court, she has this affect like an excited teenager, and it does this mind trick to us. She almost seems like she was stunted at age 18. It's really bizarre.
Well, that's
sad.
That's somewhat the borderline process is. They do appear kind of immature in many different ways, but like a not a well teenager. But go ahead, Jenny.
Right, and then you go to these interviews and it's maddening because, again, I see it's like this kid, like clearly she's got mental deficiencies, great mental deficiencies. But what stops me from being really sympathetic, Dr. Drew, and tell me if you agree with me, she does know the difference between right and wrong. Well, she knows it because she lies to protect herself.
Yes, that's the part.
Because she knows she's wrong.
That's the part, Reba, that's the part that drives us all to distraction, which is this goal-directed lying and this sort of deceitful quality where she's making phone calls to the guy's phone after she kills him. She's sending flowers to the grandmother. She's doing these really disgusting sort of attempts to cover her path. Go ahead, Reba.
I just think this whole dramatic, Jodi Arias, reality show, which is what this has become. This is her, moment in the sun, and she's just shining. And I know that she has her First Amendment right, and she has a right to a fair trial, but enough is enough. She's had it. And I just wish this judge would take control of this trial and get us to closure. How many more months, how many more millions of dollars must the state spend to prosecute someone who has so blatantly, admitted to killing Travis, and now we've got to see her paraded on television like she's some kind of star? Well, it's really getting to be pretty sick.
With hair and makeup.
Yeah, with hair and makeup provided by the media.
With hair and makeup.
Allegedly.
Like going to an Oscar party.
Well, here she is again.
Going to prison for the
here
rest of her
she is again speaking to NBC from a clip for today's show. Watch this.
Was it guilt? Was it remorse? Is that why you wanted to commit suicide?
That was certainly an element. Guilt, remorse, just, I've completely effed up my life.
If it was self-defense, did Travis deserve to die? What do you deserve?
I can't really comment on that. What I receive will be what I deserve.
So evasive, unsatisfying. In another interview, hang on, with another reporter.
I don't want to die.
I know, it's unsatisfying. Jodi said later to another reporter, or on a different interview, she felt betrayed by the jury. Now she says she's okay with whatever they decide. Ariva, that's what's driving you crazy. Mark, what do you want to say, Mark?
What it just doesn't everyone understand. I'm past the anger stage. I'm almost at acceptance. Everyone understands that what she says it is as cold and as calculated as how she slaughtered Travis. It was all planned out. This is all to manipulate, to benefit her, and also then angers us. It is for us to not allow her actions to affect us the way that they are. It'll continue on for decades.
And it's having an impact because we have this jury now that can't decide that she deserves the death penalty. So her act is working to some extent.
Well, but she's so smug, though. She's very smug. That's what's so bothersome.
Well, I don't know. It could just be that some of them are on the fence about the death penalty.
Also, whatever it is, they haven't said she deserves to die, which is what is clearly the case here based on the evidence.
And not only that, I have a feeling that some of them may be sympathetic to Jennifer Wilmot. I think that her plea for mercy might have gotten through, not for Jodi, but on behalf, I just have a feeling that she got through to somebody with that. All right, panel, next up, Jodi speaks and the Behavior Bureau reacts, and later, Travis's friend Chris Hughes is back. He says he is holding his breath with this craziness. He'll reveal why. Back after this. Time for the Behavior Bureau. I am back with my co-host, Robbie Ludwig. Now, Jodi gave a bunch of media interviews last night. We will look at some outtakes of what she told the interviewers, and the Behavior Bureau will react. Joining us, Janine Driver. She, of course, wrote the book, she's what we call the human lie detector. She wrote the book, You Can't Lie to Me. Clinical and forensic psychologist Cheryl Arrett, and criminal investigator and author of Ultimate Betrayal, Deneen Manette. First, let's take a look at this from ABC Good Morning America. Take a look.
So you really are never going to tell the truth about what went down in that bathroom?
I don't know what you mean by that, because I've told the truth.
Okay.
I didn't know that you were a hater when you came to interview.
Was going from blonde bombshell to sort of the mousy church librarian look in court, was that a defense strategy?
No, they don't sell Clairol hair dye in jail.
Overall, the demeanor is very different than the person that you were before this crime happened.
This is a court of law. It's not a place to go and act crazy, or I shouldn't use that term.
Janine, strange smile, no?
It was a strange smile. As a matter of fact, we saw some genuine happiness throughout that interview, including when asked about the pain that Travis Alexander's family is still going through. Literally genuine happiness, genuine happiness. And we saw that little head tilt, like this is like attitude. Like I expected the snap to come, like, oh no, you didn't, with that little head tilt that she does to her left-hand side. Massive attitude. Not only that, Dr. Drew, we saw lip pursing. I don't know if you remember when Kobe Bryant was charged with rape and he did some press interviews. He was sitting next to his wife. And in those interviews, we saw this lip pursing, which is like this, like blowing a kiss. And this is mental resistance. This sends the message of distrust and distaste. So we see that lip pursing throughout that interview, which is very interesting for me as a body language and behavioral expert, is to spot this. This is like her saying, you know what, you people are so lucky to have me.
But couldn't it just be, I just don't like going through this. This is unpleasant. This is like, oh, here we are. I didn't know you were such a hater, which is bizarre.
But it's mental resistance. But here's the problem. We have mental resistance combined with genuine happiness. Right. That's where the problem is, Dr. Drew.
Interesting. Deneen, you have a reaction to this, Deneen?
You know, the questioning that he was directing towards her, I found it to be very provocative. And I don't know if he was doing that on purpose. I know when she said, I didn't know you were a hater, that was probably more in line with, I thought this would be more of an objective interview. But what it did was it brought out that side of her. She was not able to contain that mousy good girl side anymore. And you could start to see that spark of attitude that I think she's tried really hard to suppress during this trial. But we could see it. And it was kind of very telling, in my opinion, to who Jodi really is.
Cheryl, I want you to take a look at this next tape. It's her sorry from ABC's Good Morning America, and then we'll comment on it. Take a look.
Why didn't you apologize to them?
I did apologize to them.
You never said, I'm sorry.
I said that I'm sorry, that I'll never be able to make up for what I did.
You didn't use the word, I'm sorry.
Well, then I'm sorry I didn't say that, because certainly I am sorry. The words, I'm sorry, just seem meaningless, especially since nobody believes what I'm saying anyway.
Cheryl, that's a little interesting clip there, isn't it? No one believes what I'm saying because I'm a liar, again, no responsibility for being the liar that no one can believe, but then feelings are meaningless. She really means that. Feelings are meaningless.
Whatever she does seems meaningless. It seems not connected to the actual situation. That was a dodge. There's no question about that. But the stakes just don't get any higher than this. Yesterday, with her statement and giving these interviews, which was a really questionable choice there, but she really demonstrated what it's like for a person not to be oriented to the situation. Dr. Drew, you know, this is one of the things we look for when we evaluate people. She seemed completely oblivious to the fact that she was talking to people who had the power to grant life or death, and she was asking for mercy. She had an opportunity to repair with the Alexander family in some way, and the interviewer gave her another opportunity to do that. She wasn't able to do it. Her personality disorder is so rigid, and it blocks her. Her pathology has never been on display the way that it was, I think, yesterday.
Yeah, Robbie, you're nodding your head, and then maybe you can also
yes.
hang a second, put a little coda on that about this issue of her seeming immature too, which I think people see that. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I think Jodi really feels that she's smarter than everybody else, and that's what's so bothersome and enraging. She's manipulating the situation, so she feels that she can handle any question that comes her way, and that's when she gives these snide answers because she's angry. She's angry. She wants to be perceived a certain way, and as far as her personality, many people feel with borderline personality, it's an underdeveloped personality, and we see the danger when somebody is really unable to have any empathy, to evaluate that they're wrong in any situation, and just focuses on the self. That's a prescription for very dangerous behavior, and I think that's what we see with Jodi.
She also flip-flopped on the death penalty. Here's what she told ABC's Good Morning America.
Why do you keep talking?
Well, because I know that I'm not just, I've lied before. That doesn't mean that I'm a liar by definition.
You know they want you dead. So why don't you give them that closure?
Well, what do you mean by that? By asking for death, I'm only going to cause more pain.
Janine, you're the lying expert. What is she talking about? I lie a lot. I'm not a liar. What is she talking about?
Notes down. I wish I had this right now to teach my class. I'm here in Atlantic City. I taught today. I wish I had this. She said, "I'm not a liar by definition." In statement analysis, which we've talked about quite a bit here, we know that people literally say what they mean. Like if I said to you, I know you think I'm cheating on you. That person just said, "I'm cheating on you," versus "I'm not cheating on you." So here she says, it doesn't mean I'm a liar by definition. So she's literally saying that. We heard it a second ago, similar. She said, if I said I'm sorry, that's meaningless. She's literally revealing with her words, O.J. Simpson, after he was arrested and that whole drama, we're following him in the Bronco. He said, for those of you who believe in my guilt, taking ownership of guilt. Well, truthful people, honest people don't take ownership of guilt. So statement analysis is really fascinating. Right here, Jodi, she also said something in an ABC interview I have to share with you. She said, and this is the local interview, she said, I expected to hang out with Travis that last night. That's not what I was expecting at all to happen, which is the murder. Who says, well, that's not what I expected to happen? Who talks like that when you slaughter someone?
So what?
But you guys, I'm having a reaction. I'm having an actual emotional reaction here. I yesterday was feeling, I need the Behavior Bureau to analyze me. I was actually yesterday feeling sympathetic. A human being's life was on the line. She was in distress. She was suffering. Maybe deserved it. I get all that. But today, I'm infuriated. I'm beside myself. I'm so angry with this woman. I feel like everybody else does now. She flips us into this. What's happening to me? Cheryl.
You know, I think that my view, as you know, is that there's a sociopath, psychopath component and a borderline component. And when we're in touch with the borderline piece of her, we feel compassion, especially you and I, Dr. Drew, because we're tuned into that. But when that psychopath, sociopath part kicks in and that disconnect happens, that's when I think it grabs us.
Yes. Denise, do you understand what Cheryl's saying? There's a part of us that we work with sick people and we feel bad for them. But this psychopath part, when it's goal-directed and cold-blooded, I got none of that. I get angry only. Denise?
I mean, that's why she's good at what she does. She's good at drawing people in. She did it during that entire first police interview where she's kind of coy and she kind of, plays on her soft and meek side. And she just pulls you in and draws you in. And I think that was what you were experiencing yesterday, and I really was a little bit worried, but I'm glad you're back on board now today.
Thank you. But Robbie, you get what Cheryl's talking about. You can feel compassion for a borderline who feels chaotic and out of control and has horrible relationships. But this cold-blooded, smug, holier-than-thou, begs no alternative. I'm not sorry. Well, I'm not sorry. But Robbie, I'm not sorry. Could be I can't have feelings. I get that. But I'm not sorry because I'm not sorry.
No,
that bugs me.
I think she would say as a Chiron, I'm not sorry, and don't you think I'm pretty, and I'm like the J-Lo of the Arizona prison system, and maybe I'll have a perfume called Devil Woman. Do you want it?
Oh, I need a bath. I need a shower. Janine, you want to finish to take us home?
You know, it just drives me crazy. I got to tell you, I did an event today. 50% of the people in the room have been following the case, and I came back, and on a break, I spoke twice. And when I came back, I told them that the jury came back, and they didn't have a decision. The whole crowd, it was 2,000 people, all like this big, like, oh! And Travis Alexander's family that we are falling in love with more and more every day, and our hearts break for them.
Yes, I want to talk more about the family on the next Behavior Bureau. We're going to talk more with my panel here, get more reaction from more tape, and later on, Travis's friend Chris Hughes on not one, not two, but 3 big mistakes he says Jodi made. Back after this. Back with my co-host Robbie Ludwig and the Behavior Bureau. Before I go to this clip, guys, I was just thinking about this. How many of you all, teenage years or whatever, did a little stalking behavior, like hanging out outside somebody's house, maybe calling and hanging up? Show of hands. Show of hands. Janine, William. Who else? Janine. Cheryl, come on. Come on, Cheryl. Come on. Come on, a little bit. Robbie, no?
Maybe driving in a car by a house.
That's what I'm saying.
Stalking, is
That's what I'm saying.
I stalked the prom. I stalked the prom to see who the guy I wanted to go with was going with. So me and one of my friends, Monica.
It's a little weird. Okay, anyway. But my point is, there's a certain amount of that stuff that's normative. A lot of people do that kind of thing. And there's a certain part of Jodi that's just kind of a sick, crazy girl. When did she become the person we hate? Because that's what started happening to me now. I was sort of more empathic for her yesterday, and all of a sudden this other piece came up. Is it this psychopathic piece, Janine, or that just sort of been hidden, where she could have gone from, if she hadn't murdered Travis, she'd just be another kind of difficult person?
I think what makes Mark and me and the team, all of us scream at the camera and the television set is when she's in court and she's really snarky to the prosecuting attorney with lack of that respect. You know, even today in one of the interviews we saw, she said, I want to stop this from dragging on. And she has this genuine smile. She's lighting up. Not only did she do that in the interviews from last night that we see airing today, but in court today, she's laughing with the bailiff or the police officer on the side. She's cracking up laughing. She got off on all these interviews last night. When we see that and we see Travis Alexander's family in pain, that's what makes us scream and put our hands in fists and get really angry. These nonverbals are not matching her verbals.
That's right. I want to give you another clip of Jodi's interview with ABC15.com. Jodi was asked about the verdict. Watch.
Are you mentally, emotionally ready to meet your maker if that's their decision?
Well, I'm ready to meet my maker, but if that time should come, but if that's their decision, it would drag on for years and years. So it's not really contemporaneous. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're saying you have a lot more time. Even if you get death, you still have years to live, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Cheryl, there she is again, begging no alternative to her view of the world. She went on in that interview. I saw a little bit more of it. And by the way, you can watch more of it on ABC15.com. She talks about religion, talks about heaven and hell. And again, she understands those things. You understand? She knows heaven and hell. And the heaven she knows, the hell she knows, where she's going, maybe everybody else doesn't understand, but she has special understanding of it, and she's going to be fine. Cheryl, her sense of the world begs no alternative.
I think, Dr. Drew, you're responding to her arrogance and her narcissism there. Mm-hmm. Her sociopathy, I've had some very interesting people writing in on my Facebook page about this, about how sadistically she really is throwing in these things to torment the Alexander family. And even there, the clip you just showed, oh, well, if that happens, it's just going to drag on for a long time. And, you know, she's really kind of milking all of this. And what some people who are experts in sociopaths are saying is that sadism that enjoying torturing and putting one over on somebody is something that most normal people can't get their minds around. The astonishment and the reaction that I think you're having and other people are having is because we don't think like she does. So we keep getting astonished. Our jaw keeps dropping like, really?
Yeah.
Is this really happening?
Yes. I can't get my head around psychopathy. I can't do it. Deneen, but I think I'm back, Deneen.
You know, her whole demeanor is in total contrast to her whole defense. If she was actually, you know, fighting for her life against this naked guy and, you know, who was attacking her, and she really just was total self-defense, why would she even be expressing the desire to die? Why would she not be expressing the desire to fight on and show the truth if what she was saying was really true? But this whole, you know, whatever happens, it's going to take a while and whatever. I mean, is that a person who really believes their own defense, which was self-defense?
No, I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Deneen. But it's also a person who has magical thinking. I have the secret. I can magically make things happen. And things will drag on forever. I'll get a new trial. Well, whatever.
But it's so disturbed because if any one of us were waiting to hear about our fate and a jury was deciding this, I can guarantee we would not be saying, makeup please, and who should I be interviewed by, because we'd be too nervous.
We'd be freaked out, yes.
We'd be like, oh my God, this is crazy, this is really happening.
She's totally disassociated.
And it's almost like reality, right. She is not confronting reality, and I think that's also maddening. And I think the reason, Dr. Drew, why you're hating her a little bit more today is because we're hearing more from her, so we're seeing how sick she really is.
I think you guys are onto something. Now, I want to address something else, too, before we let you guys go. I've said many times on the show how my heart goes out to the family, and I've sort of, my own codependency got attached to Samantha, and you guys know I'm a severe codependent, and I started calling her my Samantha, but please, that's all my stuff. It doesn't mean that I have any less empathy or concern. Like, for instance, for Stephen, who I know has PTSD, and I'm actually worried about him, and if we can help him, please, the family should reach out. There's Stephen and Hillary and Tanisha and Allie and Greg and Gary. Listen, these are all my Alexanders. And by the way, my entire team here thinks about them, talks about them all the time. So please, just because of my pathology, which is my codependency, started going out to Samantha because I was seeing her cry all the time. I needed to make that stop. Doesn't mean we're thinking any less of the rest of the family. So you guys understand what I'm talking about, my panel?
I call you my Dr. Drew.
Well, that's good, Janine. Thank you for that. And Cheryl, I know I've unloaded my stuff on you many, many times, so thank you for being there for my nonsense.
Thank you. No, I'm always happy to talk with you about all this, Dr. Drew. And I think your compassion is a big part of why people feel so connected when they watch you. And I think this would be a really good time just to also bring up, you know, I'm a big fan of EMDR, which is a very effective short-term evidence-based trauma therapy. There are people all over the country who do it. You can go online to emdria.org and find somebody, and the images that are in people's minds, they really can, once this is over, get some help with that.
Great point. It's something we would specifically get, say, for Stephen, who's stuck with this, swirling with these horrible ideas. And then, by the way, still going through excruciating, who knows what, how much longer, excruciating pain as this thing drags on. Thank you, Jodi. Now, if anyone has a question or a comment for the Behavior Bureau, tweet us at Dr. Drew, DRDRWHLN, hashtag Behavior Bureau. Thank you, panel. Next up, Chris Hughes doesn't want to see Jodi die or get life in prison. He's got his own sentence for his friend's killer. And later, Abe Abdelhabi returns with a few choice words for our friend Jodi.
I didn't know that if I got life, there are many things I can do to affect positive change and contribute in a meaningful way. I'll share a few examples that I've thought of. My hair was past my waist, and I donated it to Locks of Love. I've designed a t-shirt. This is the t-shirt. Some people may not believe that I am a survivor of domestic violence. They're entitled to their opinion.
Back with my co-host Robbie Ludwig and Mark Eiglarsh and Jenny Hutt. Joining us all, Travis Alexander's close friend Chris Hughes. Now, Chris has something you want to say, I guess, about Jodi's survivor tee. But before you do, here's what Jodi told Fox 10 KSAZ in Phoenix last night.
The survivor t-shirt you had in court today, many people thought that was bad for you, that it wasn't in great taste, and it may have worked against you. What do you think about that?
I don't see how helping a cause is working against me. If it's in bad taste, well, then that's their opinion, and they're entitled to that. But it's a cause that I believe very strongly in, and if I didn't, I wouldn't have shown that t-shirt.
Chris, I want to get your thoughts on what she said in court, on these interviews, and answer this, if you wouldn't mind. Has the family had to be subjected to all these interviews?
Well, first of all, in the family, yes, they've unfortunately seen them. I don't know if they've all seen all of them, but yeah, and I spent some time with the family today, actually prayed with them, and we were together most of the day. I talked to Greg and Gary, who are just busted up that they can't be here. Their jobs just won't allow that to happen. So, but they are, loving Travis and wishing they could be here as much as all the rest of them. But yeah, on that, I think that Jodi showing that T-shirt is probably the third greatest mistake of her life. First being that she premeditated this murder, and then tried to cover it up, and of course she did it. So that was number one. Number two was going on television and saying all that she said and changing her story, and she just keeps doing it. And then number three was holding that T-shirt up in front of the jury and in front of the world as though she doesn't understand that she's one of the most hated people on the planet right now, and I really think that that's going to work against her. There are some people on that jury who just must be outraged having seen her do that.
I agree with you, Chris. And I think, Mark, I think you have a question for Chris. I'll let you do that in just a second. But I think a lot of people in that jury must be thinking, really? You want us to give you a satisfying life of service? That's what you're asking for us? And by the way, you service to other people? What? Mark, that's not the woman I want out there helping others necessarily.
No, I think that her selling T-shirts on behalf of domestic violence victims is like Casey Anthony selling T-shirts on behalf of missing children. Yeah. It's disturbing.
Yes.
Chris, I want to ask you something. Chris, first of all, love you, brother. It's nice to see you again. I'm very concerned about what the jurors may not decide. And I'm wondering, there's going to be a conversation between Martinez and the family if they're undecided. And it's going to be, hey, are you guys okay with round two? Can you handle it? And the next jury, they're not going to know the gory details, so we're going to have to let them in on that, and it's going to take a lot longer. Is the family up for it? I'm not up for it. Are they up for it?
Yeah, I'm not up for it either. I talked to several of the family members today, and what they're all unified in is they're all unified in capital punishment in this case. Are they all up for doing this again? The sentencing phase, some are, some aren't. But it's tough. My heart just breaks for them. This is very, very difficult situation.
Right, look, let me ask a naive question of mine. It seems like a lot of what they're suffering through is what they have to sit through in court. Can't they just allow it to go and just take a few days off to take for mental health care, take care of themselves?
Well, I wish they would. I mean, this is, but they won't. I don't think they will. I mean, they're here to see us through.
No, I see that. I wish, please convey to them that we want them to take care. We need them to be okay. Jenny, do you have a question for Chris?
Yeah, Chris, how invested in this outcome do you think the family is? Do you think they'll be okay if the jury comes back with life in prison?
Well, I talked to Greg and Gary today because, we hear a lot about some of the other family members that are able to be here in court, and they both said the same thing, that they're unified with the rest of the family, that they want the death penalty in this case, but that they're going to respect the outcome of the court. Whatever the jury comes back with, they're okay with that. The one thing they don't want, none of them want any possibility of parole in any way, shape, or form, ever.
Excellent. Now, Chris, if I were to ask you what sentence you would like to see her get, what would your response be?
Well, philosophically, I'm not opposed to capital punishment. I believe in this case that she deserves it. I mean, let's bring it back to brass tacks. She premeditated a murder. She stabbed him 29 times. She virtually decapitated him. She shot him in the head. She killed him 3 times. And if that weren't enough, there's all of these other stabbings. So let's just remember that. And then she's lied and lied and lied again. And she's tried to cover her tracks. So I believe that that is fitting. Having said that, I'm not attached to whether or not they actually put her down. I think what is really fitting for Jodi Arias is the life of a death row inmate. you know, 23 hours a day in a cage, in isolation.
Yes, I think everybody.
And a long life in that environment.
I think everybody is fairly unified in that one. Thank you, Chris. We do appreciate you joining us, as always, and your thoughts. And please, the best out to the family from us all here at Dr. Drew on Call. All right, we're going to switch gears and talk about whether Jodi is the most hated woman in America. A man who once dated her has no problem with calling her that, and he has a few choice words of his own. And later, my jury made a unanimous decision. We'll talk to them after this. Welcome back. My co-host this week, psychologist Robbie Ludwig. Joining us, Abe Abdelhabi. He is the man who once dated Jodi Arias. So, Abe, I've been saying that you have some choice words. I don't know quite what they are. Should she get the death penalty? Let's start with that.
Absolutely. There's no question that in my mind that she should get the death penalty. I don't want to see her get life. Even natural life, I want to see her get the death penalty. I want to see her locked in a cage for 23 hours a day, and how they treat death row inmates is how I want to see her treated. It's not about, she wasn't convicted on lying. She wasn't convicted on, you know, being a martyr for society. She was convicted because she brutally murdered somebody who didn't want her back. That's the bottom line.
Now, Jodi was asked how she felt about being what we might call the most hated woman in America. She said she wasn't aware of that and feels a lot of love and support. Abe, is some of that love and support coming from you?
Not at all. And in fact, this quote-unquote love and support from a couple of hundred postcards, I think, is evidenced by the 50 people who like pro-Jodi pages versus the thousands of people, literally, who support Travis Alexander and his family. There's 50,000 people on one page, like 5,000 people on another page. You go to some like Jodi page, it's like 50 people, 40 people. So it's the same inbreds recycling themselves, and they write her postcards. So she thinks she's loved. It's really kind of comical if it wasn't so brutal.
Now,
I don't think she cares.
Well,
no, she's out of her mind. No, she can't possibly care because she's out of her mind. She's like that oblivious sitcom character who nobody likes, and she has no idea that nobody likes her.
Tell me this. Tell me if you think I'm right. That Jodi doesn't care because any attention is good attention. She feels she's known. She exists. People are recognizing her. Now she's getting the attention she's always dreamed of and wants. And so she feels in some way she's in a good place and she can still get out of this. And I think what's so enraging is that she doesn't take any responsibility for any of her behavior, which is crazy making.
Well, on a bigger picture, she's Rollo Tomasi. If you ever saw LA Confidential, she's the one who got away with it. And everyone in America or everyone in the world that's been watching this, she's the husband that cheated on the wife. She's the boss that ripped you off and did not pay you. She's that person that made you miserable and got away with it. Now people are venting onto her because she did this heinous thing on top of trying to get away with it in the most heinous ways possible, lying about a guy's character, lying about his sexuality, lying about beating her, and then she has the only thing she can glom on that's even decent is now she's going to be the paragon of battered women with her dopey T-shirts. Pardon me while I let the class just waft over me for the T-shirt thing. That drove me nuts when she pulled out the T-shirt, and then she has the nerve to say in an interview that, well, if everyone's upset about the T-shirt, that's not my problem. No, it is a problem because you're out of your mind. And if this was another network, there's some other choice words that I would be using right now, I promise you.
Mark, real quick, just a couple seconds.
Abe, first of all, thanks for your passion. You never hide your feelings. But very quickly, do you think it's because of something Jodi said that the jurors are hung up, or some other more generic reason?
Honestly, Mark, I'll be candid with you. I honestly think it's because she shared her baby pictures.
Okay.
I mean, literally, Hitler had baby pictures. Right. He was adorable as a 5-year-old. He had little lederhosen and a cap, and these little chubby Hitler cheeks. So what? He had baby pictures. Yeah, so she got baby pictures. She grew into a woman that almost chopped a guy's head off, on top of everything else. Today was very frustrating that anybody could come back and doubt that you signed up for a death penalty case. And now you've got problems.
Okay, guys, thank you. Next up, I got to go to my jurors. They have no problem with a verdict. Their decision after the break. For Dr. Drew's jurors, joining us, Katie Wick and Stacey Farrington. Katie, no verdict. Do you think Jennifer Wilmot's plea for mercy resonated with someone on that jury?
Not at all. I don't think Jennifer had anything to do with it. I think there's absolutely nothing Jennifer could have said that would override the brutality of this crime at all. I don't think she played a part in this at all, Dr. Drew. And I have to say that I agree with this whole notion that there is not a deadlocked jury. I, too, read what this local journalist put out. And if this note is, in fact, verbatim what was asked they're saying if. It is a hypothetical. If we cannot get past this stage, what do we do? How do we communicate with you, Judge? So I feel more comfortable after I read that this afternoon.
So you're saying it's more just that they want some communication, some guidance, it's not that they're actually deadlocked, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, Stacey, what's going on there in the courtroom? How's the family doing? What's the sort of, is there tension now that we can't really pick up on watching through the cameras?
You know, I don't think it's tension. I think it's just everybody's waiting. And I think, you know, we've been here for months and months on end, and I think, you know, this is kind of the final thing that we're waiting for. And, you know, I think the family is hopeful. I really do. And I really place a lot of faith in this jury. I think they are going to get it right, and I think they are going to bring back a death, you know, I think they're going to put her on death row.
Well, thank you for being unanimous in your position, and you guys always bring me good information, so I think we'll sleep well tonight, and we'll see what the verdict is, hopefully tomorrow. Thank you, ladies. Last call next.
Yeah.
Time for the last call. Robbie, this thing has me spun emotionally. I go from compassion to anger. I think most people are just sort of in one camp or the other. I go back and forth.
I know, I keep getting emails from my mother. She deserves death. But I guess the question is, will the law act as the rightful avenger for Travis Alexander's family?
Hopefully find out tomorrow. Thank you all. Thank you, Robbie.